Hi class, this is Dr. Karsten, and I am going over the Math POD from May 11th. So in this problem of the day, we have to put these fractions in order from least to greatest. So let's start off by taking a quick look at these fractions, and what I can see is that here 3/5 and 2/5 have the same denominator. Now it might be helpful if I write them in a different way, the way that you are more used to seeing them. So I'm going to go ahead and write them like this. So we have 2/4, 3/5, and 2/5. And again, the first thing I notice is that here they have the same exact denominator. So then I know that the sizes of the pieces is the same. For each of these, one whole has been divided into or partitioned into 5 equal-sized pieces. So then I can just look at the numerator and see who has more of those pieces. Here I say I only have 2, here I say I have 3, so I already know one thing. I already know that 3/5 is bigger than 2/5. So let me flip those around. And I'm going to go, because I want to go from least to greatest. So I already know that this is going from least to greatest. But now I need to figure out what to do with this 2/4. So what I see here is that I have 2/4 and I have 2/5. And remember, when my numerators are the same, it means that I have the same number of pieces, or then I can look at my denominator to see which one has larger pieces. And remember, the fewer number of pieces that the whole is divided into, the larger those pieces. Do you want to share a cake among 4 friends or among 5 friends? I'd rather have among 4 friends. I'll get a bigger slice of the cake. So if I'm looking at this, what I can see is that this 2/4 is definitely going to be larger than 2/5. So now I need to figure out, though, where does 2/4 fit? Does it, because I know this, I know that 2/4 is greater than 2/5. So the question is, where does 2/4 belong? Does it belong here in between 2/5 and 3/5? Or is 2/4 even bigger than 3/5? So that's where it gets a little tricky, is that we have to compare 2/4 and 3/5 to figure out where it would fall on a number line. Well, if you guys are looking at this 2/4, you may have noticed that 2 is half of 4, so I know that this is actually equivalent to 1/2. And if you have been listening to the, 10, 11 times that I've gone over the fifths, you would know that 3/5 falls between a half and a whole, closer to the half. So now I know that 2/4 would fit in there. But if you didn't remember that, what you could do is you could actually go ahead and get a common denominator for these two. So if I want to compare 2/4 and 3/5, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn both of them into 20ths. And how do I do that? Well, remember, we take the fraction, one of them, and we multiply it by the denominator in the other fraction. So I'm going to start with 2/4, and we always show what we start with. I'm going to multiply it, so I'm taking 2/4, I'm going to multiply it by the other fraction's denominator, which is 5. And whatever I do in my denominator, I must do in my numerator, because 5/5 is just 1. So now I have 2 times 5 is 10, 4 times 5 is 20. Now I need to do the same thing with 3/5. So for 3/5, I'm going to start with 3/5, and then I'm going to multiply this fraction by the other fraction's denominator. So I'm going to multiply times 4, and whatever I do in the denominator, I must do in the numerator. 3 times 4 is 12, and 5 times 4 is 20. And so now what I see is that this is smaller than this. This one is smaller, which means that this one's smaller, because they're equivalent. These two are equivalent. So now what I know is that 2/4 is going to go in between 2/5 and 3/5. So how am I going to do that? Let's go ahead and slide the paper up, and I'm going to write it. So I know that the smallest fraction that I have is 2/5, which is less than 2/4, which is less than 3/5. And I could even put that on a number line if I wanted to. Where I would have 0, I would have 1. Here, this is a half, which is equivalent to 2/4. And then 2/5 would be right about here. And 3/5 would be right about here. And here's where my other fifths would have fallen, just to show you. All right, so that is how we would have done the May 11th POD. We put the fractions in order from least to greatest, and I hope that explains it. I will see you back in our Google Classroom.